All right, mounting the radio mount. This is going to mount this bracket right up there. So the first thing to do is take off the A-pillar cover, and that's done by screws right up under here, Torx. I think they're 15 Torx. All right, so these don't take regular screwdriver heads. These take Torx drivers, which it's like a 6-sided star type. This is actually just overlapping molding on the side, so the center part is not one whole piece that goes down the side, but it does fit inside here, and there's a little pin that fits into a slot, so that has to be taken into account. I'm going to try to do this without pulling this whole panel out, because it's still kind of fitted in there on the sides, but at least it gives me enough space. So first thing I want to do is rotate the roof latch out of the way, and that gives me access to those screws. All right, I got the screws out, and the little loop here just stays on. It's I think it's probably just stuck in there with the paint, but I'm not going to move it because I'll just screw the plate right back in. All right, I did. As soon as I touched it, the loop did come loose. So what I do is I just put the two screws right back in there, and now I'll just tighten it down, and it should be good to go. Well, there it is. It's nice and tight. That was just too easy. Okay, now the litmus, or the test here to see whether it'll clear everything. Oh, there's excellent. Doesn't even come close to it. As long as you mount the radio on the bottom side of it, you'll still have full access of the for your roof latch. Oh, that's great. Let's put it all back together. All right. One problem with this is, in order to get it up into the holes, it butts up against this. And the instructions, it didn't say anything about notching this, although it did say tools required would be a hacksaw in order to trim the A-frame, the A-bar cover, which I assume means that you got to notch that out in order to slide it back in. I think there's enough clearance for it. It's just that it won't slide into place. So I'm gonna, instead, rather than cutting up my Jeep, I'm gonna bend this out to fit it into place and then try to bend it back in. So we'll see how that goes. I had to take my roof off in order to have enough leverage to go up that high. At least that's what I'm anticipating. So we'll just bend this out, and then I'll bend it back into place after I'm done. So hopefully that's enough to fit. All right, well, that all fit back into place. It's all snug, and now I'll just use the same principle, bend it back down into place. And that's close enough for my work. Maybe a little more. I'm not mounting a full radio to this. I'm only mounting just the radio head, so it's not going to be a real big encumbrance here. And I think, but anyway, so that looks like it'll work. All right, so there's the complete installation of the mount. Of course, I don't have my radio in yet, or the radio head, but it's all buttoned up. It fits in here. There's enough space. The latch functions. I can open and close it. It's at least enough to to get the roof off. And one thing, when I put the visor back on, I looked and there's only this much space here, and I thought, well, if there's that much space on this side, I'll never get a radio in here. This is way too narrow. And then when I put the other visor on, I noticed it's offsets. There's a big wide open space here. So when I mount the radio, it'll have to be offset. It won't be centered on the bracket. But since I'm only putting on just a radio head and not the full radio, there's going to be very little weight here. So I can offset. It'll be hanging more onto that side than this side, because there's a big space over on this side. But just considerations for when I actually do the radio install. But like I said, with just a radio head, there's almost no weight to it, and I can offset that without any problems. But all in all, well, even though I think if I followed the instructions to put it in, there's probably some trimming that should have happened here, but just by bending the bracket out of the way and then reinstalling the cover there, I was able to avoid cutting anything, and then it bent back into place fairly easily. So all in all, worth of it, 25 bucks. I'm trying to keep from cutting any holes or anything in my Jeep, my 2016 Jeep, almost fresh off the showroom floor. So I want to keep it in pristine condition as long as possible until I start going off-roading, and then it'll start going downhill from there. All total, it took me about 20 minutes, and that's without knowing how to do it. So that was a pretty fast install. It looks pretty professional. No cutting, no drilling. I imagine once I put my radio or the radio head back in, I'll probably have to pull that molding off the top again to route the wires through there. But I want to do that as few times as possible, so I don't end up stretching or twisting anything up there in the molding. That's it. Nice install.